What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today I'm finally bringing you the highly anticipated 10th and perhaps the final installment in our series 5 Things We Want in Elder Scrolls 6. You can jump in and watch any episode in this series at any time because they're not all connected to each other, so if this is the first one you've clicked on, sit back and enjoy. Now there's a chance we keep going with part 11, 12 and so on, but I have an urge to take some of the concepts I like to talk about regarding Elder Scrolls 6 and turn them into singular video discussions so I can go really deep on one particular topic. For example, I'd love to make a video about if bringing back attributes would work in Elder Scrolls 6 or not, and how it could be executed if it was. However, in this video, I've got 5 separate desires to discuss, and you can threaten me all you want, but I think I'm slowly gaining immunity. That said, your threats did ensure this part 10, although the same threats I've seen so many times before aren't so effective, so I won't even bother with the duplicates. As expected, the top comment is by Nazim. I think we need to take up arms and fight back against this menace. Nazim said, "We want Nazim to be in the game, but he has to be essential. Also, if you don't do part 10, I'll be in the game nonetheless. Do you get to the Cloud District very often?" Oh, what am I saying? Of course you don't. Tremaine Dezoimo says, "Part 10 or you will have Nazim partner up with the Thalmor and ask if you go to the Talos Shrine a lot." I've got to say, I'm very proud to see Zith come in, speaking of his desires, saying, "Number 1, to eradicate repetitive Nazim commenters plaguing FudgeMuppet's comments." Kryptonic Matter also had a threat which could probably get this video demonetized just if I read it. And then we had some threats relating to other YouTubers. Burning Blade said, "Part 10 or Grainoff will break into your house and oi from you." And James Grant threatened, "Part 10 or the Elder Scrolls 6 has a protagonist fully voiced by Oxhorn for male characters and Camelworks for female." Well, maybe I want both of those things to come true. What I don't want happening is Dan Oliver's comment, which was, "Part 10 or the world is subjected to Lurbic singing for eternity." Anton Mornleden also knows how to scare me with, "Do Part 10 or the Elder Scrolls 6 will only have one location with bats." Truly horrifying and pushing me over the limit to create this 10th installment. So first up, we have a desire that's inspired by one of the comments left on the last video. And by the way, don't just leave threats, please do leave as many ideas for Elder Scrolls 6 discussions as you can, as I do love to talk about them a lot. So a commenter by the name of The Comment Guy 8 had a bunch of desires, but one of them was character backstory. Are you a prisoner, a convict, a gladiator, or an apprentice? Dragon Age Origin had different backstories, so why can't Bethesda do it? Now, I don't agree with this point entirely. I do actually like the blank slate start, so you can really just pick any backstory you want. If you had something like 5 origins to choose from, it would be cool, but it actually does limit backstory potential, compared to a character that could have truly been from anywhere and been anyone. That said, the comment did inspire me to come up with a slightly different angle on this desire, and that is the idea of having more opportunities to talk about your past in dialogue, and having that impact some future dialogue. The important factor here is that it's completely optional, and there would always be the option to just not talk about it or say nothing. This happened on extremely rare occasion in Skyrim. For example, in the Dawnguard DLC, Serana tells you about her family, but then actually asks you about your own family. You can pick one of the predefined options, or you just choose not to talk about it. In the Forsworn Conspiracy quest, Madanuk tells you to listen to one of the prisoner's stories, tells you his, and asks you a bit about yours. There's not super extensive dialogue options, but that's fine. I just thought it was nice when conversation was treated like an actual exchange with your character, not just an NPC talking at you, and it provides for more recognition of role-playing desires. Sometimes none of the options would fit the story you came up with in your head, so again, the option to kind of just ignore the question or change the topic should be included. Character backstories are complex, and we definitely don't want to limit them, so more frequent instances of this happening is great. Questions you could be asked are, so what province were you born in? Do you have much experience with warfare? Are you familiar with politics? Or if you're in a guild learning specific skills, have you done anything like this before? There could be a range of answers which would change the way the NPC would treat you, but I want their dialogue to be written cleverly so you don't miss information. For example, with the question, "Are you familiar with politics?" you could say, "Yes, I was raised amongst it." And then the person talking to you would say, "Ah, good, so you'd know very well that XYZ happened." So they still tell you what happened anyway, while doing so in a way that acknowledges that you already have knowledge of the topic. You get the idea. Or if you say you know how to use a sword, they could say, "Well, this shouldn't be too hard for you then. A refresher is always healthy. Basics are everything after all." And then train you how they would train you even if you said you had no experience experience, but the dialogue frames it differently. You could also have dialogue options change things later based on what you said. For example, if you explained your family were nobles, perhaps later in the game when you meet a certain noble, she comments that she can tell you are just like her, simply by the way you talk and your posture. Or maybe at one point in the game you mention being a criminal, like you could imply to Jarl Balgruuf regarding Helgen, but then later in the Thieves Guild, it would be cool if the recruiter says, "Hey, you look like you've done this before. I can just tell." Overall, more options to talk about your past, with well-written options to avoid the topic if none of the answers fit your character, really help to make your role-playing feel more alive and impactful. It won't all just be in your head, but rather is recognized in the game. And now for a desire I think we all wanted in Skyrim, to be honest, and that is an arena. This is actually a desire brought up in the comments by Deadshot Gaming 125, who had some cool ideas to contribute. I actually did mention having an arena faction super briefly in our part 5 video of this series, while talking on the topic of having more niche factions for you to join in the game. However, now I want to give the arena some more attention, dedicating an entire desire to it. For those who don't know, there was actually an arena planned for Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, but it was cut from the game before it was released, so we never got to experience it. It was the Windhelm Pit, and there were plenty of NPCs cut from it too, who even had their own faction code and dialogue. I would have loved to see an arena in Skyrim, but it wouldn't need to have the same Imperial Gladiator theme that the one in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion had, even though that was awesome. So in Elder Scrolls 6, let's bring back the arena. Now, we're assuming the game is set in High Rock, Hammerfell, or both, and I think Hammerfell would be a really great place, as does the user who left the comment. The reason I think Hammerfell fits is because of the strong warrior sword-singer culture. You can imagine an arena in the desert, much smaller but similar in vibe to the Petronarchy arena on the planet Geonosis in Star Wars. Not the high stretching hive vibe of it, just the color palette, the sandy ground and cliffy walls, then overhaul it with Redguard and Yakuden cultural influence. It could be where the very best warriors in all of Hammerfell come to prove their might, and it is believed the Grand Champion, which would probably have another name that fits Redguard culture more, is blessed by Ebon Arm, the Yakuden god of war. A main point here is that an arena faction should be culturally specific. We've already had the Imperial one in Cyrodiil, so there's no need to copy-paste it into the next Elder Scrolls title. In High Rock, you could imagine an arena that is much more regal, frequented by gambling nobles and rich bureaucrats. It could be much more knightly with heavy duelist vibes. Fair play is admired much more here, so perhaps in this arena, targets defeated are simply downed after you beat them, instead of full-on slaughtered like they were in Oblivion. Interestingly, this could provide for some cool characterization opportunities to see how certain combatants act after defeat. Perhaps some want a rematch later on, maybe some arrogant ones turn humble in defeat, or the other way around. There could even be a quest you're asked to do by someone you defeat, who then considers you strong enough to help them with a situation they have going on the side. The commenter who desired the arena also had a cool idea where the plot could have some more depth. Essentially, investors could have funded the opposing arena faction and take a long-term cut of the winnings. However, then they start trying to have you assassinated because you're defeating all their members and they're losing lots of money. At one point, they could cheat, breaking the rules and giving your opponent an unfair advantage. Imagine a really cool moment where, in spite of the opposition cheating, you still defeat him, and then covered in his blood, you stumble your way to the area the leader of the investors is sitting in, sword clenched in your hand, and the guards simply move out of the way because they don't like this noble either. You take great joy in removing him from existence before continuing on your arena questline of making your way to the top. You could even have an adoring fan make a return. Our third desire on this list was yet again inspired by you, the fans, waiting for Elder Scrolls 6. So be sure to leave your ideas for any future Elder Scrolls 6 discussion videos you want us to make. So the third desire on this list is hard to say in a few words. It's more or less to make the world feel like it exists without you by focusing on recognition, news, and events happening inside and outside of your control. So what do I mean by this? Well, the comment regarding this came from Leon Muller, who wanted to see a news system. He more or less said, to keep it in the realm of possibility, let's say there is one newsletter. It reports on sieges, wars, conflicts, marriages, and other important political moves, such as new laws, new kings, the death of an heir, and so on. Personally, I think this would be great, especially in a place like High Rock, as the tone could be far more political, and you could be involved in helping certain kingdoms defeat or take over other ones. You could be involved in sabotage or corruption, creating new laws or assassinating key figures, and it would just be awesome to see the word spreading in public, instead of just having the guards say a line line here and there like, "I hear they're reforming the Dawn Guard." You could have newsletters, still the guards saying things, but also more examples of NPCs having interactions where they express their feelings towards the latest things that have been happening. Most of these things you'd have a role in, but not always. For example, some events might be level locked, so once you hit level 20, a certain king is assassinated, and then hearing of this you go investigate and begin a quest with a level 20 starting requirement. A system like this would keep the world feeling like it dynamically changes, staying current, as opposed to being a set piece that exists without you, but never updates or changes. Town criers could be seen more shouting out the latest news, be it big player achievements, or what would be really nice too is level locked news that has nothing to do with you, so you just have incentive to level up. Imagine hearing some lore at level 15 about other provinces, such as what the Khajiit government is up to and elsewhere and things like that. Nothing too high level, as we'd want most lore to be available for most players, so don't lock news behind level 80 or anything like that, but having all news sources not relating to your actions exhausted by level 40 or 50 would be an interesting concept. The newsletters could also feature political opinion pieces or written debates between nobles in the courts, outlining law regarding certain war, trade, and cultural stances. So overall, having a news system as well as more NPCs who talk about events, in addition to even more events and quests that are talked about as you reach higher levels, would really help, in the words of the commenter, add another layer to an already very interesting world. Moving on, we've got a simple desire that I briefly touched on a while ago when I discussed having truly unique weapons, and that is enchantments. In Elder Scrolls 6, I would love to see better and more unique enchantments in the game, going on the assumption that enchanting was overpowered in Skyrim and will probably be made more balanced in Elder Scrolls 6. Providing more types of unique enchantments will help to keep enchanting a very desirable skill. It will also help to provide for more playstyle variety. So what do I mean? Well, we should still keep enchantments that boost skills, stats, and resistances. However, let's add more enchantments similar to water breathing. So you could have a slow fall enchantment, only able to be put on the boots slot, which actually makes you descend slowly when you jump from something. Your speed would still increase somewhat as you fall, so that if you jumped off the tallest spot in the game, you could still build up enough speed by the end of it to die from fall damage. But generally, you'd be able to jump off some high areas without taking damage at all. You could have an enchantment for gloves and gauntlets that allows you to get twice as many ingredients from harvesting, and a stonewall enchantment you can put onto armor pieces that prevents or at least lowers the chance of you getting staggered or knocked down. One really crazy idea could be an enchantment for bows and crossbows, which actually gives the projectile a very limited amount of tracing, so you can shoot just a little bit either side of your target, like a sword's length for example, and the arrow guides to the target. It wouldn't be too overpowered. Think of it more as making the shots that would normally only just miss actually land. Also, if attributes don't make a return, and there's a good chance they don't, then we still don't have any way of increasing our character's movement speed unless it's through perks, things like that. So enchantments for movement speed could be cool too, or imagine a weapon enchantment that gives you a 10% chance to disarm your opponent with each strike. There's a mod called Summer Mist Enchantments of Skyrim that actually adds a lot of new enchantments to the game, some of which would be awesome to see in the next Elder Scrolls title. There's enchantments to fortify bashing damage, to reduce the stamina cost of power attacks, to give you a chance to stagger enemies when you block, and even to take less damage from attacks when your health falls below 25%. You get the idea. Overall, this would incentivize using enchanting to get special abilities for your character, in addition to just assisting your stats, resistances, and skills. The more unique you can make a character's playstyle with special effects and bonuses, the more fun you're gonna have, and the more replayability there will be for new builds. Sounds like something we'd all really enjoy. Our final desire for this video is actually more things to do in the late stages of the game, more late game quests and challenges which incentivizes you to reach higher levels in the game too. These would all be side quests and none are essential to enjoying the main game experience. However, they provide for some great moments for the highest level players. The concept behind this desire is that once you have become a god tier character, you need some god tier challenges too. In Skyrim, once you reach a certain level threshold, most quests become easy, which is fine, because if you're powerful, you should feel powerful, but there should still be more challenges to overcome on the horizon. How cool was it to be approached by and to fight the Ebony Warrior? Moments like that are awesome, but we'd want it done even better. Imagine having quests that might have a big boss battle, but they still build upon in-game lore and have a build-up. Quests similar in size to the Lost to the Ages quest, or even longer in rare cases. So for example, the Ebony Warrior quest could have had more build-up, and it could have been explicit explicitly established that he is an aspect of Ebon Arm, as many people have since assumed he is. In general, fighting avatars of gods is really epic and challenging, but if the quests involving it have lore, story, and fascinating characters to meet and interact with, it would be so much better. Imagine once you have 100 in all magic skills and you reach, say, level 60, you could gain access to doing this super advanced quest involving Magnus, and things get extremely metaphysical, exploring some really complicated lore. Using Hammerfell as an example, I can imagine a late game quest involving the Ansei. In the lore, we know that the Ansei, that is the greatest among the sword singers, are gone. However, if you've finished the main story and then you manage to reach a really high level, you could be approached in one of the main cities by some experienced looking Redguard with some very uniquely aesthetic swords. He tells you he is gathering a team, embarking upon a quest to restore the Ansei to prominence. You go with him, meeting an entire cast of other really top tier looking characters who are all working in the team. You are accepted into the group due to your high level and experience, and then do a series of quests involving investigating Yakuden ruins and collecting certain artifacts. After completing all of the necessary quest steps and reaching the end of this side quest plot, it could culminate into a final quest where you perform a ritual to summon the spirit of Frendar Hunding. Meeting the spirit, he says he will teach you the way of the Ansei if you can best him, which leads to an epic boss battle with giant spirit sword attacks used against you. Then if you win, he teaches you the spirit sword power, which is this unique ability you can use once per day, and it is large scale and really powerful. It would be kind of like a master spell with spirit sword magic, which obviously doesn't cost magicka. I can picture some sort of martial arts looking Yakuden swordsmanship animation to unleash it. Then the quest continues into you making a guild hall, a hideout where you and the rest of the team form the new Ansei, or something along those lines. This all provides for more story, really memorable characters, it builds upon the lore, it adds more fun quests, and a tough boss with new rewards on top. In a nutshell, having more adventures that become accessible at a high level would be truly sensational in Elder Scrolls 6. And that concludes our latest video in the series, 5 things we want in Elder Scrolls 6. This was part 10, and it's amazing to think we've come this far. That's 50 Elder Scrolls 6 desires talked about, so thank you so much for listening, even to just some of them. Like I said, we could do a part 11, but we'd love to take some of the desires we've already talked about, or think of new ones, or read new ones in the comments, and create entire videos on the single topic, really diving deep into some of the coolest possibilities. Thank you again for watching, and if you're interested, our social media links can be found in the description below, as always. My name is Michael, I can't wait for Elder Scrolls 6, and I'll be back to nerd out with you again very soon.